Welcome to our latest Chamber Q&A. I'm Mandy Haque, International Director at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and I'm your host for today. And in this episode, we are talking about the launch of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce's recent report, which assessed the impact of exchange rate volatility on businesses in Greater Birmingham. The report was produced in partnership with Western Union Business Solutions, and I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Christina Wadlow, Head of International Partnerships at Western Union International Bank, to talk through the main findings of the report. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
And it's lovely to see you today.
Yeah, you too.
And so the survey, Christina, for this report, it took place in the middle of the first nationwide lockdown, and we heard back from almost 1,000 local businesses. And I'd like to pick out a few of the key headlines. So firstly, just over a quarter of the manufacturers that responded, they expressed concerns over market volatility in regards to managing their foreign exchange risk. And then secondly, of those businesses that are already suffering with the market volatility in regards, just over a third of firms were passing on additional costs to their own customers. Now, Christina, you speak to many businesses across the region, and I'm sure you've had some really interesting and challenging conversations with them. So what do you think that they see as their biggest worry in foreign exchange risk management today?
Yeah, sure. It's a really interesting time at the moment. It's a really hard time for a lot of businesses. We know that volatility has always been a concern for businesses in the Midlands. So if we look back at recent barometer reports over the last few years, we've always seen sort of 20 to 25% of businesses have said currency volatility is an issue for them. Right now, a lot of businesses are focused on keeping the wheels going. So they've got issues with supply chain, they've got issues with market changes, appetite from customers and delivery. But what we do know is that businesses are still finding volatility an issue for them as well. So you've mentioned there, so it's 26% of businesses stated that currency volatility is a problem. And when you think about all of the other challenges that are faced by businesses at the moment, not knowing the price or the cost of your purchases or the value of your exports, it can only add to what is already an uncertain time. And that's why, looking at volatility in its own is a really important thing to consider for these businesses. So what can they do to take that uncertainty out of the market, what is already an uncertain market? Can they protect themselves from the unknown? And when we look at currency, I look at sterling dollar, we're seeing exchange rates move so much more than they have before. You're seeing a currency move on average 5% in a month. So, if you're looking at a manufacturer who might be working off a 10 or 15 or even a 20% profit margin, 5% currency volatility is a really significant amount of their profit that could be lost or gained based on a currency volatility.
Sure. So it's challenging times then, isn't it, really? And it was also interesting to see that just under a quarter of businesses across the manufacturing and the service sectors are absorbing the additional costs in a bid to manage that fallout from market volatility. But on the whole, how do you think businesses across the board are actually dealing with these day-to-day fluctuations then? Because like you've just said, it must be really challenging if rates are changing so much for them.
Yeah, definitely. So we've done some research on our own customer base, on our own businesses that we know in the UK, and we know that it's really industry specific. So travel and tourism is, yes, of course, it's facing a really difficult time right now, but we know historically that those in the travel and tourism sector have only got a very small margin before they have to start passing costs on to their consumers.
Yes.
We know that manufacturing is a little bit wider, and we know that NGOs and charities is wider still. But what we're seeing is, at the moment, businesses are faced with a really difficult challenge of pass those costs on to consumers or absorb them themselves. They haven't really got much more in the tanks to absorb from themselves. So therefore they're having to make a decision, pass the cost on to a consumer, or make a fundamental decision about what your business strategy is. So are you going to source your goods and services from somewhere else that's cheaper? Are you going to have to make cutbacks of staff? Or are you going to have to not make, you know, developments that you were planning to help grow your business? So it's a real challenge at the moment.
It's really difficult decisions that businesses are having to face at the moment, isn't it? And I mean, despite all of the geopolitical uncertainty, which you alluded to earlier as well, that we're facing right now, as a chamber, our international team is still out there doing everything it possibly can to help companies expand their international reach. So what advice would you give to local businesses on how they can manage their foreign exchange positions? Because we wouldn't want it to become a barrier to them actually aspiring to or trading internationally, would we?
No, absolutely. And I think if I look at Western Union as a whole, we are across many sectors, and we're seeing lots of different areas in the Midlands, but also in the UK as in the whole. And yes, we're facing challenging times, but unquestionably there are winners and losers in this. So we are seeing some businesses who are nimble enough to make an opportunity out of the current market conditions. And some of those are trading internationally into new markets. Now, for those businesses, we just think, you know, that opportunity is out there, but don't let things like currency volatility or using an unknown supplier and opening yourself up to fraud, don't let that be something that is a barrier for your success. Use somebody, you know, use the resources available to you via the chamber and via chamber partners such as Western Union to make sure that you are protecting yourself from currency volatility. You're understanding what your exposure is. You're understanding what new markets there are out there for you. And also that you're making sure that your payment strategies are all secure. So you're not dealing with people who are going to opportunists who might try and fleece you in a time like this.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And I suppose really the most important thing is that they go and get that advice and support from experts like yourselves. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's so important, isn't it? Because if you just go off and do it yourself without, you know, and we hear these horror stories, don't we? So we need to ensure that they are coming to, you know, chamber partners such as yourselves for that advice.
We do, and, the good news is it's free, so it doesn't cost anything. You know, going through the chamber, speaking to the chamber about what experts they can recommend, even if you've got incumbent suppliers, it's worth having a check, because when times are tough and we are looking to make savings and be as efficient as we possibly can, another great win can be to know that you've got something in an incumbent supplier, but why not check it? Why not find out, just to make sure that you are getting the very best advice and guidance and service.
Absolutely. No, that's really good advice in itself. So thank you. I'd like to really thank Christina today for her time. And don't forget, for those businesses looking for help in order to trade overseas, the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce's International Department offers a range of services and support across export documentation, customs declarations, market information and contacts to specialist advice on international trade and innovation, including translations and training, and of course, foreign currency exchange. And full details can be found on our website, along with a copy of this report. So once again, thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching.